Well, hello there. Reddit Robot here. Today I'll be reading a choice selection of 3 stories from the ubiquitous subreddit r/ProRevenge. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Let's hop right in, shall we? Our first story is titled Revenge of the Construction Workers. I am a teacher, and when I was younger, I would take summer jobs to supplement my income. One summer, I worked for a bricklayer named Jerry and heard an amazing story. I worked for Jerry in the mid-90s, so the story either happened in the early 90s or in the 80s. Here goes. The setting for the story was a community of small rural towns which had only one brick contractor. Jerry began his career as a bricklayer working for this contractor, a real jerk. Jerk and Jerk's son, adult working the business with his father, would harass, belittle, and humiliate all their employees on a regular basis. No work was ever good enough and employees were told they weren't worth what they were paid. Not only did Jerk mistreat his employees, but he was equally rude to other subcontractors and to the general contractors who hired him. Since he was the only bricklayer in the community, there was nothing anyone could do about it. Needless to say, the turnover rate for the brick business was very high. The only person that stuck with Jerk and Company was Jerry. Jerry told me that his father had instilled a self-confidence in him that Jerry could do anything he set his mind to do and that he should not evaluate himself according to what others said, but, rather by the facts. Although Jerry was belittled by Jerk and Son as were all other employees, Jerry was becoming a very good bricklayer. Jerry knew he was good. Jerk knew Jerry was good. But, Jerk didn't know that Jerry knew he was good. Not only was Jerry a good bricklayer, he was very respectful to the boss who disrespected him. Jerk thought that Jerry was a naive pushover who was buying his head games. That would prove to be a huge mistake on his part. One day, Jerry was doing an exceptionally good job of laying brick. Not only was his craftsmanship amazing, he was laying brick at a high rate of speed so that he was making his boss lots of money. Of course, Jerk and Son were belittling his work as though he was doing the very opposite. This scenario was being observed by the general contractor of the project. After work that day, the general contractor asked Jerry to stay behind so he could talk to him. As did every other construction worker in the community, general contractor hated working with Jerk. General contractor told Jerry that he had heard Jerk and Son belittling him, and told him that he disagreed with everything Jerk was saying. He asked Jerry if he had ever considered going into business for himself. Jerry said that he would like to do that someday. General contractor then said that he would loan Jerry the money to buy a mixer, the most expensive piece of equipment needed to start a brick business, if Jerry would indeed start said business. The only hitch was that Jerry would need to pay for the mixer whenever he could and that he would subcontract under general contractor. Jerry agreed to those terms and prepared to begin his new venture. Jerry respectfully told Jerk and Son his plans and gave his notice. The two mocked Jerry ruthlessly and laughed him to scorn. Jerk told Jerry, "You'll be back in 2 months begging to return to your job, you'll never make it as a subcontractor." 2 months later, rather than collapsing as Jerk predicted, Jerry was still in business and going strong. 1 year later, Jerry's business was booming and a drunk Jerk showed up at Jerry's house and begged him to come back to work with Jerk and Son. "Jerry, you're the best employee I ever had." Jerry replied, "Why didn't you ever tell me that when I was working for you?" Jerk couldn't answer the question, and Jerry obviously didn't accept the offer for employment. 2 years after beginning his entrepreneurial adventure, Jerry heard that Jerk and Son went out of business. Jerry said that he never intended to harm Jerk and Son when he accepted general contractor's offer. He said that looking back on things he realized that he had become Jerk's greatest nightmare. "I can't say that general contractor intended no harm." I thought the most amazing thing about the story was how that Jerry maintained his self-esteem in spite of all the ridicule. I also gained a respect for Jerry's father, who instilled an unshakable self-confidence in Jerry. Edit: I contacted Jerry today, after 20 years, to let him know how highly you thought of him. He reminded me that his father was wheelchair-bound and accomplished so much in spite of his handicap. It was his father's overcoming huge obstacles that made Jerk's words seem to be such a minor obstacle to overcome. Our second story is called, Stalker Boss Ends Up Regretting It. I've just discovered this sub and I have the perfect story for it. It won't be a long one because it happened about 4 years ago and I'm fuzzy on the exact details, but it's still a belter. I used to work in a convenience store, and the store manager was a real prick. Misogynistic, offensive, as in haha cancer is hilarious, offensive, creepy and a downright bully. Sometime after I left, he was fired after he decided to turn a professional interview with a young woman into a conversation about her favorite porn. She reported him and he got the sack. Awesome. Anyway, this guy, we'll call him Andy, fancied himself as a real leader. I mean, he wasn't. He set impossible tasks and yelled instructions whilst doing absolutely nothing in the office in the meantime. I had a colleague called Gabby who, to be honest, I didn't get on with. However, I knew that at the time she was having a really tough time at home with her 3-month-old son. One day in the winter, it had snowed fairly heavily. Gabby rang in that morning and told Andy she couldn't make it in as she was snowed in. Everybody knew that wouldn't have been true, and that it was likely she hadn't slept well with the baby crying and whatnot. But you know what, who cares? She always worked hard and she deserved a break. It was only a 4-hour shift and the store was dead anyway, no customers were gonna walk over snow and ice for the morning paper. Plus we were actually overstaffed. However, Andy had a problem with women. He was always disrespectful and demeaning. Like the rest of us, he knew she wouldn't be snowed in, but he didn't let it lie. He wanted to catch her out. Andy abandoned the store, serious gross misconduct, and got in his car. He made the 15-minute drive all the way to Gab's house and took pictures of her car, her front driveway and the rest of the street, to prove she wasn't snowed in. He then called her into the office at the end of the week for a disciplinary. When she came out she was in tears. She was on a final warning. Andy wouldn't want a dismissal on his quarterly record, so he basically just threatened her instead. This didn't sit well with anybody. We hated him anyway, but he went too far, making a single mum cry over something so ridiculous. Well, here's the good part. What Andy didn't realize was that on the last work night out, he has drunkenly revealed to the team that he was a serial cheat. He would regularly cheat on his wife of 18 years. He also has 2 teenage sons. He would justify it as having natural male hunger, if you've ever heard a more disturbing quote. Andy used to tell his wife that on an evening he finished at 2,300 hours. This was a lie. He never worked later than 2,100 hours. After an evening shift he'd go and boink whichever side piece he had going at the time. Well, one evening, he finished at 2,100 hours and he got in his car and started driving. What he didn't realize was that Gab, who wasn't on shift that day, had dropped her son at her mum's house and had waited outside the store in her car for Andy to leave. She tailed his car all the way to his hookup house and parked 3 houses down. She then proceeded to take pictures of Andy hugging and kissing this random woman, before pulling her inside and slamming the door. You can see where this is going. Andy didn't come into work for a week. When we saw him next he looked broken. His wife had been anonymously sent the pictures of him getting off with another woman. She'd kicked him out and had contacted a solicitor to start a divorce process. His sons had blocked his number and wanted nothing to do with him. Of course he knew who sent the pictures. But he had no proof, no evidence. Gabby stayed at the store for another 3 months before moving into a recruitment position for a pharmaceutical company. As far as I know she's still there today, and doing well. As for Andy, I have no idea whether the divorce went through or not. I blocked him on all social media after I left the company, about a month after this whole thing. What I do know is that he's a disgusting, reprehensible human being who thought he was invincible. He thought he could walk all over people, bullying and belittling as he went. Well, he soon realized that nobody is invincible, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching his collapse. End. Well, that was a satisfying one. Our third and final story is titled The Christmas Ornaments Robin Hood. It is 2020, unfortunately. It's the day after my two younger sisters and I flew out to Pennsylvania to see my dad, who lives there after getting divorced by my mum for 15 years of not being a good husband or dad. He lives with his mum, cranky grandma, and her devil cat, as well as my amazing aunt and her angel kitten. Dad gets home from work. Where's Emmy? He asks my cranky grandma. She's in the basement, cranky grandma says, probably throwing in a snide comment or two about the newly dyed purple hair adorning my head or the leather fingerless gloves that have joined my black wardrobe. Looking for some Christmas ornaments. Dad goes down the basement stairs and finds me rummaging through cardboard boxes. What are you looking for? He says. Hi, Dad, I say. Well, I noticed that you decorated for Christmas, but you're missing a few things. Where are the mooses? The mooses are a pair of stuffed mooses that have been put up every Christmas since I can remember. They're brown, about 2 feet tall, and soft as a marshmallow. There's Mama Moose, who is named Mary, holding baby Moose, who is named Christmas and is in a red velvet sack reading Merry Christmas on it in gold embroidery. The mooses always go on the couch to watch over the living room and all the decorations and presents in it while we're asleep. The problem with the mooses is that when my mom divorced Dad, she was so scared of him that she let him have almost everything. This included the mooses and quite a few more of her treasured ornaments. And since I've always been the one to set the mooses on the couch, that first Christmas with a divorced dad just didn't feel right without them. Dad helps me look for the mooses for a while. Sorry, sweetie, they must have gotten lost in the move, he says. I smile and don't tell him that I hate being called sweetie. It's okay, I say, and pull out a cardboard box. Hey, look. It's your What God Wants for Christmas box. I love that tradition. We go set up What God Wants for Christmas in the living room. I say, I think I'm going to go take a nap. Dad says, okay. I go upstairs and into my room and shut the door. I walk over to the window seat, storage chest under the window. I open it. Hello, mooses, I say. The mooses lay on top of my stuffed animal collection, looking dusty. Several other ornaments I recognize as Mom's are keeping them company. I grin and shut the chest. It is the day we fly back to my home state. I have the mooses packed away in my suitcase, and the other ornaments tucked beside them, wrapped in my fluffiest, but still black, hoodie to protect them. I roll my suitcase out to the hallway. Dad is weighing youngest sister's bag to make sure it's under 50 pounds. Okay, now I need to check it to make sure you're not stealing any of my stuff. He tells her. My mind says, oh no. My brain gives me uncomfortable memories of how Dad raged when he thought one of us had stolen his coffee mug. My voice says, privacy invaded in 3.2. In a joking tone. Dad and youngest sister laugh. Dad does not check anyone's suitcase. We are at the airport. Younger sister's suitcase is somehow 3 pounds over the weight limit. Dad says, Emmy, grab one of the suitcases that already went through and open it up. We'll put some of younger sister's stuff in there. He gestures to my suitcase. My mind makes an ear-splitting screeching noise that sounds like someone slammed their brakes to avoid hitting a pterodactyl and hit the pterodactyl anyway. My brain imagines Dad opening the suitcase and going into a rage at the sight of the mooses. My voice says, "Sure, Dad." My hands grab youngest sister's suitcase instead of mine and pass it over. Dad opens it. Her suitcase contains no smuggled goods. We transfer the stuff and the very nice airport lady sends all the bags down the conveyor belt. Dad asks me why I wave to mine. I shrug. Just being weird, I say. Good luck, mooses, my mind says. We are back home. My family, my older sister, who didn't go with us, Mom, my other grandma, who we call Maga, and my bopper, or grandpa, are all sitting in the living room catching up. I say, I'm disappointed you took the tree down already. Older sister laughs. It's past New Year's. I know, I say, but I brought some stuff to put on it. I open my suitcase. I show around the ornaments I smuggled back: 3 tiny stuffed snowmen, our cat's catnip stuffed cat ornament, a white clay angel, a wooden rocking horse, a wooden mouse king, a clay snowman, my older sister's stuffed dog. When I unveil the rocking horse, Maga gasps. I bought that for your mother when she was little. She exclaims. How did your dad get it? That's not everything, I say. I unzip the flap hiding the mooses from view. I pull out the mooses. Older sister and Bopper clap. How did you get those back here right under Dad's nose? Older sister asks. Maga laughs so hard she has tears in her eyes. The tears in Mum's eyes are not from laughter. Slowly, she reaches out and takes the mooses, hugging them to her chest. Over their antlers, she mouths thank you. And then, she gets up, and she sets the mooses down. On the couch. Right where they belong. That story brought some warmth to this robot's heart. To get more Reddit stories read by me and my soothing timbre, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Ta-ta for now.